what is it that is so alluring? Like, what is the serpent's tail that wraps around our ankle and pulls us to the bottom of the ocean, to the codependent rock that keeps us stuck? What exactly is that?
I feel like a broken record, but it really does root back into the nervous system of safety. Because our definition of codependency, of how we orient it around it in the book, is codependency is any relational dynamic where we source safety outside of ourselves from someone or something at the expense. And that's the key word, Josh, at the expense of our wholeness, our sense of self, and our core needs. Because in a codependent dynamic, no one's true needs are actually being met. No one's truly being seen. No one's truly being heard, understood, and loved for who they truly are. We're kind of playing out our survival strategies in self-protection mode and doing what we learned how to do in order to survive our earlier family system dynamics. And we're just repeating that in our adult dynamics now. And so, what is the rock? The rock is, we don't have this felt sense of safety or felt sense of self-trust that I can actually bring all of who I am to myself and also into relational dynamics. Because based off of previous dynamics, I learned that I needed to shut this part down, shut that part down. And you know what? Like, this is such a tender journey as I sit here and talk about it. Is like, many of us, this question in and of itself of who am I is initiatory in nature. Like, who am I? What do I really value? What do I really need? And what do I really care about? And so I think that is as a starting point out of codependency is reorienting to our own true north. And we've talked about that in various ways in this book, but being able to have this felt sense of safety of like, I know, Josh, this is what makes me free in my relationship with Mark. I know no matter what happens in the world around me or in my relationship that I'm okay. And I don't just know that intellectually. I know that in my bones, in myself. Not only because I know that I can trust myself, but I have people in my world that I can lean back on. I have sisterhood. I have community. I have healthy relationships with my family. I also have my own, financial foundation where I know how to resource in that way. So I am not dependent on Mark financially. Yes, right now, because of where we're at, I am, but I'm choosing that. That's the difference. It's a choice.
And the power dynamic is explicit.
It's explicit.
Like we talk about.
We know that that's part of our dynamic right now, and it's not being exploited, which makes their choice on both sides. And I think that's the beautiful part about liberated relationship is like, there can be these dynamics, but when we actually bring voice to it, we're free. We're choosing it. We're naming it.
Wow. Okay. So Mark, would you say it in this way? I'm curious how you might explain this. So if liberation is this commitment to sourcing from self instead of outside of self, then really aren't we talking about being okay with processing fear and having the skill set to process fear when fear enters that human experience? Because really fear has complexity, right? There's different faces of fear. It energetically blocks love from expressing in lots of ways. So what exactly I'm saying and what I'm curious for you to expand on is like, is it really at the core of it all just fear that we're going to be abandoned, hurt, unloved, that we're going to be abused, that we're going to be neglected, that we're going to not be accepted? I mean, at the bottom of it all, like, what are we actually talking about here when fear enters the space, when really false evidence is appearing real? It does feel real. It feels very real for us.
When someone says something like, let's say, for example, I'm afraid of commitment. You're really not afraid of commitment. You're afraid of what commitment leads to. You're afraid of, you don't trust yourself in the face of commitment. But even if I don't trust somebody, it's because we don't trust ourselves in relationship to somebody, right? Like, can I still, as Kylie's talking about, have access to real, true choice? Because if I'm entering that fear, that below is like, I lose myself. I don't have access to my voice. I let them decide everything. I have to feel broken to be with them. Even in the relationship to things like abuse, it's like, I don't trust that I have access to my no. And so we have to go beyond what the fear is, the fear of what's going to occur. We have to build the skill set that would be necessary to confront that fear. That's why the things that are left unexcavated because we're ashamed of them or whatever they are, and they're put in this little box or big box, we have to open the box up, sometimes with guidance, sometimes with support, because we need to learn from the experience. And I know this type of subject often brings up, like, that shift of something happens to you versus something happens for you. And when we enter the space of something happens for you, the response is often, well, that is saying that an abuser happened for me. Here, we can hold space that victimization is obviously a very real thing. And we're not going to say, like, that happened for you. Yay. We're saying that you can't change the past, at least not in the model of the time machines that currently exist. And since you cannot change the past, you can change what the past means for who you are today. You could take the material from the experience. So to be liberated is to be able to go into those things without fear of being lost in them anymore. It's being able to be with that. I'm afraid you might betray me because the last time we had this conversation or we were in relationship, you did. I'm afraid you might do this. I'm afraid I don't trust myself to stand up for myself. What beautiful truths to bring forward to a relationship, Wow.
Okay. So one of the things in the book, I actually wrote this down, and it hits on exactly what you said. For a new relationship, one that feels different, lighter, and exciting, demands that we develop the skills and abilities of someone who was already in that type of relationship. I wonder for people that have had traumatic experiences, right? Like the true capital T's. And I loved how you said, like, we're not, pacifying that. We're not making that small. Like, those things are real. At the end of the day, if we do truly, authentically desire something new, if we want a liberated love, if we want to feel like we have agency where we're free to leave at any time, no one's here as a slave, right? Then when these pieces come up inside of us, because I or we think it's about the other person, but it's actually what I'm experiencing in myself, then the skill set that's being built there is actually emotional resilience, actually emotional adaptability. And that adaptability and resilience is something that it just honestly takes time. And I wonder from looking back on your timeline, was there a piece of you, Mark, that you can look back on with fondness and be like, wow, he really used to be deep in a program. He really used to act in a way that was projecting towards Kylie. He really was, and not to shame or blame him, but like, was there a part of you in the past that you can look back on in 1.0 before the sacred pause, and now that's in 2.0 looking back, that you could share that might ease the suffering of a man that's potentially behaving in that way?
Well, I could look back prior to Kylie and I can see a version of me in my early 20s that I had to bring out of the box and find love for. And that was the frosted tip puka shell necklace, womanizing younger version of me that I...
Dude, you had puka shells?
Yeah, the puka shell necklace. You didn't have one of those?
Justin Timberlake. I might have actually.
I
think that was early 2000s.
You can't have hair probably like that and not have had
I probably did.
Yeah. Did you have frosted tips?
I think yes. When I was 20, I dyed my hair frosty. I look like one of those frosted mini wheats. Okay, but I digress. Go ahead.
That I had to come back to just like appreciating and loving that version of myself for what I learned, what I do when I'm in pain, when I feel rejected, and with Kylie in relationship 1.0, the wound that I was carrying the whole time was, you don't choose me fully. Like, that was 100%. It was it wasn't there at the beginning because I kept having conversations about, what I desired, what I wanted. But as soon as she expressed that, and we talk about it in the book, that she had this dream that she might have to leave, that left unresolved was always operating in the background. So here I had learned somewhere in my life, early childhood, almost always, that it was okay. That was okay. That like, it was okay to leave myself in relational circumstances where I don't feel fully chosen. And that made me really sad when I finally came to the awareness that I could talk all I wanted about my desires and what my deal breakers were. But if I wasn't honoring them, they're just suggestions. And it was a deal breaker in me not being willing to shift on it that ultimately brought everything to a head. And it was my commitment to what I wanted to create and the fact that I wanted to have children. And I knew that there would be a movie called Old Dads made one day and I would be in it. I was like, I have, there's a timeline and I want to do it and I want to do it now. So yeah, that's where I finally chose myself. And I finally realized that in relationship to someone who couldn't choose me, I didn't choose me. I would actually collapse. And, we talk about building this level of agency in the book where it's like, if you can't trust your choices around men or women in the context of anything, then your yes is not a true yes. It's not. It comes with small print. If you don't have access to your no, your yes is not authentic. And that's not to shame anybody, of course, because I know that yes well. It comes with autoimmune, it comes with stomach pain, it comes with anxiety, it comes with depression. Because when we're faced with what is not a full yes, and we say yes, we're just putting ourselves in wounding circumstances.
Hey, if you loved that clip you just saw, watch the full video. That clip was just a taste, just a piece, the tip of the freaking iceberg of what you just witnessed and what you just felt. Click the link on this screen, subscribe to the podcast, click the link on this screen if you're vibrating, if you're resonating, if you feel what I'm putting down.